EastEnders, Ian makes heartbreaking discovery in secret scheme. Will he confront Priya? After being left for dead at Christmas, Cindy is convinced Ian is behind the vile assault and that finding the locket she was wearing that night at his place would prove it. Recently, Priya Nandra heart-flirted with Ian, pretending to make their exes Cindy and Ravi jealous. However, it was revealed she'd been hired by Cindy to retrieve the locket that once belonged to her late daughter Lucy. In tonight's scenes, Priya bumped into Ian at the cafe, telling him she enjoyed the previous night. Later on, Priya informed Cindy her husband was on the hook, but her plan would cost her more now she had to hang out with Ian again. After managing to get an invite for dinner at Ian's, Priya drugged his wine. When he headed for the bathroom, she started to rummage in his drawers. Priya searched Ian's bedroom but had to rush to the bed and made it look like she was seducing him when he emerged from the bathroom. It was Ian's mum Kathy who entered the room, though. Followed by Ian just behind. Kathy made it clear she wanted Priya out of their house. For his part, Ian defended Priya, telling his mum, she cares. She listens, she doesn't interfere and she doesn't judge. But due to Ian's stomach problems, their night couldn't continue, much to Priya's relief. In the final scenes, Ian was determined to make it up to Priya and brought her the food he'd cooked for them as a takeaway. In the street, he was shocked to spot Priya talking to Cindy about him before taking cash from her. How will Ian react to their deal? EastEnders Phil Mitchell is extremely vulnerable, says Ross Kemp. In recent episodes of EastEnders, viewers watched on as Phil Mitchell attempted to take his own life. He did survive the attempt, though his mental health continues to decline as part of an ongoing storyline. In upcoming scenes, Phil will reach a mental health crisis as his symptoms worsen and he begins to hallucinate moments from the Mitchell family home in 1985. As his visions continue, Phil is a bystander to a pivotal moment in his childhood, as Daniel Delaney and Jamie Winston reprise their roles as a young Phil and Peggy Mitchell. However, in a moment that may save Phil, Grant Mitchell returns to the square. Despite being in denial of Phil's crisis, Grant acknowledges something isn't right. Kemp explained, he can see that something is going on because Phil isn't himself. But he refuses to admit it to himself. I think the way Grant reacts is representative of how a lot of people feel when someone they are close to has mental health issues. And Phil is extremely vulnerable right now. There are quite a few psychological things for Phil, like his age, his lack of self-worth, and the way he feels his usefulness and value have diminished. McFadden explained of what has brought Phil to the peak of crisis. He continued, he's had all the classic reasons that anybody would find themselves at a low point. And over the past few months, we've gone up through the gears to get to this stage of crisis. However, a couple of weeks before, Phil falls down the 8-foot pit in the Arches and badly bashes his head. So I think it becomes physiological as well. Everything has come together to take Phil to the point where he decides to take his own life. What's great about telling a storyline like this in the soap genre is that we can gently tease it apart and be very specific about that character's experience as we have the time to do that. As Grant makes a return to the square, McFadden isn't sure that his arrival helps Phil. Their relationship is unstable at the moment, he said in a new interview. It's embarrassing for Phil that Grant sees him in this state. He doesn't want anyone to see him like this, least of all Grant. Grant isn't someone he can turn to or rely on. Grant has been coming and going over the past few years, so he's not been there. When Phil needs him, he's not there. Will the brothers be able to reconcile in time to save Phil? Two late EastEnders legends return in deeply heartfelt scenes. The BBC soap celebrates a whopping 4 decades on air next week. And it would be wrong to mark the occasion without recognizing the talented original cast who launched the phenomenon back in 1985. Amongst the 20 original Walford residents were seasoned actors Wendy Richard and Bill Treacher, famed for roles in Are You Being Served? And Dixon of Dock Green. The pair, alongside teenage children Michelle and Mark, plus Pauline's elderly mother Lou Beale, cemented the Fowler family as one of the show's most iconic. In the very first episode, Pauline consults Dr. Legg about her pregnancy, and a few months later she gave birth to Martin. He's now the sole remaining adult member of the family left on the show, alongside adoptive son Arthur Jr. and daughter Hope. In tonight's episode, Martin and his children harked back to a storyline from 1989, when Arthur SNR appeared on the fictional game show Cat and Mouse. Pauline signed her husband up for the TV appearance, and a few weeks later the residents gathered in the Queen Vic to watch his winning performance. Last week, we saw Martin tell girlfriend Ruby Allen that he wished that he still had a copy of the episode so that he could remember his late dad. She put her thinking cap on, and managed to track down someone who had uploaded the episodes online. To her dismay, Martin's ex-wife Stacey Slater, who has been harboring her feelings for him, suggested that they meet in the pub, like their nearest and dearest had done 36 years earlier, to watch it. Ian and Kathy Beale were heart-warmed by the sight of their much-missed family on screen, whilst Martin looked tearful at hearing his dad's voice again. His stepdaughter Lily Slater was in disbelief at her dad being name-checked by the show's host Dave Wright, whilst Arthur Jr. finally got to see his namesake. Reflective on Arthur's breakdown in 1986, which was recently mirrored in scenes with Ian, Sharon Watts was left with food for thought concerning her ex-husband Phil Mitchell's mental health. Ruby got word that Zach Hudson was having trouble getting her infant son Roman to sleep, and as a result she had to leave early. As the remaining locals made their excuses and left, Martin was left alone with Stacey by his side. She was clearly smitten at the chance to spend some time together. With a sense of nostalgia in the air, will we finally see Martin and Stacey reunite in next week's Huge Week? 15 huge EastEnders spoilers for next week. What's next in Walford? 1. It's Billy and Honey's wedding day. Nearly 20 years after their first wedding, Billy and Honey are set to remarry. As loved ones prepare, Walford hopes for a flawless ceremony. But will disaster strike before they exchange vows? 2. Cindy wields a gun. After Priya drops a shocking revelation, Ian and Cindy get into another heated argument. But Cindy doesn't stop there, she's more determined than ever to expose her attacker. Furious, she crashes Billy and Honey's wedding celebrations at the Vic, publicly accusing her latest suspect, leaving the guests stunned. Later, Cindy finds someone in a compromising position and points a gun at them. 3. Phil makes a choice. Reunited with Grant, Phil tries to stay strong despite his obvious pain. As the Mitchell family joins the neighborhood celebrations, they remain unaware that Phil is making a decision born out of complete despair. 4. Denise decides. You choose. Still head over heels, Jack and Ravi dial up their efforts to win Denise's heart. Later, Denise is shocked to learn that both men are caught in the chaos at the Vic, with EastEnders giving viewers the historic chance to choose her fate. Will Jack or Ravi emerge victorious? 5. Stacey fights her feelings. Now settled with Ruby, Martin is focused on their future with little Roman, trying to bury his feelings for Stacey. Meanwhile, Stacey struggles to move on, finding it harder to let go than she anticipated. 6. Cindy feels the heat. As tension builds, Cindy confronts the person holding her missing locket, but a sudden twist alters the situation dramatically. Will this confrontation finally lead to the expose we've been waiting for? 7. Sonia makes a plea. With Reese still missing, Sonia urges Bianca to carry on with life and attend Honey and Billy's wedding. However, Bianca's mood shifts after a heated confrontation with Grant during an unexpected run-in. What sparked the argument? 8. Linda raises the alarm. Fresh out of rehab, Linda recognizes the signs of mental health decline in Phil. Worried he may be a danger to himself, she visits number 55 and uncovers evidence of his pain, prompting her to alert Grant and Nigel. 9. Reese returns. As Sonia and Bianca enjoy the celebrations, neither realizes Reese is nearby. After Bianca returns home, the killer sneaks into his old house, terrifying his former prisoner. With Bianca ready for revenge, they have a furious confrontation. Will this be the moment Reese faces his comeuppance? 10. Jean plays Cupid. At Honey and Billy's wedding, Jean urges Stacey to confess her feelings to Martin. Though Stacey is unsure, Jean encourages her to be brave and follow her heart. Elsewhere, Zach shares a chat with Martin in which he opens about his previous romance with Nicola. 11. The Vic explodes. In sensational scenes, a massive explosion erupts inside the Vic after two confrontations trigger a shocking series of events. Later in the week, Walford erupts in chaos as residents anxiously await news of their loved ones while emergency services work to save those trapped. Meanwhile, the victims inside face a terrifying ordeal, desperately searching for a way out. 12. Phil hits rock bottom. Linda, Nigel, and Grant team up in a desperate bid to save Phil. At the Archers, they plead with him not to harm himself, but Phil seems convinced he has no other choice. Can the trio convince him to change his mind before it's too late? 13. Denise picks her man. In a groundbreaking live episode, Denise unveils the result of the public vote. While Ravi and Jack go about their day, Denise makes her way to the door of the man she wants to build a future with. To take part in the vote on Wednesday the 19th of February 2025. Click here for all the details. 14. Jack leaps into action. As the Vic teeters on the brink of collapse, Jack teams up with other residents to save as many people as possible. The severity of the disaster makes the mission difficult, but they press on, with at least one death confirmed. Who will be lost in this unimaginable tragedy? 15. Sonia enters labor. As the live episode unfolds, Sonia unexpectedly goes into labor in the direst of circumstances, trapped in the Vic with only two people by her side and no medical help. The terrified mother faces an uncertain future. After the struggles of her pregnancy, it's unclear if Sonia will survive the labor. Is this the cruel fate awaiting her?
Các bạn vừa theo dõi một sản phẩm của EastEnders Spoiler TV. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn.